Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's the closest you've ever come to dying? Please remember to like, share, comment, hype, listen, and ask for shoutouts. And subscribe. Building a hotel as an iron worker, the guys doing the elevator shaft up and dropped a bundle of rebar from 70 to 80 feet, which landed about 2 feet from me and another guy. We both went into shock a little bit, and then we saw red LOL and wanted to fight everyone there. I took a couple weeks off and decided to get another job. I had meningococcal septicemia, was too ill to have a lumbar puncture, and very lucky to have all my limbs. Parents were told I might not make it through the night and to get family there to say their goodbyes. My mom was going to put me to bed that night with some medicine. Doctors said I wouldn't have woken up. We lived a few roads away from the hospital, and my granddad ran over with me there in his arms and said he knew something wasn't right. Genuinely don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for him. Was standing at a bus stop and logging truck flipped close to me with parts and logs flying toward me. Was listening to my Walkman on full blast, but saw a woman across the street staring at me with a horrible look, and saw it just in time to jump over a barricade that I was standing in front of. To add to it, I walked back home because there was no traffic getting through, and my sister-in-law, who I was living with, was home. At that moment, a moment of a song was playing on the radio, and the 96th caller got to guess what it was to win a prize. Before I told her what happened, I called in and won tickets for skiing. It was Robert Palmer, simply irresistible. Several years ago, I was changing the serpentine belt on my car. In order to do that, I had to jack the car up, take the front passenger tire off, and lay on my back with my head under the wheel well while my dad worked from the top of the hood. It wasn't going well, so I slid out from under the wheel well to have a look from the top down. I slid out and sat up. Before I got to my feet, the jack under the car twisted, and the car slammed to the ground. Had it happened 5 seconds earlier, the wheel stem would have decapitated me. We lifted the car again, put the tire back on, and towed it to the garage because all that. 2012. I'd gotten a new job and I was going to meet friends at a bar to celebrate. I was going 45 miles per hour, light was green, and suddenly this black SUV goes on red, thinking the light was green on their side because they were on their phone, and hit me head on. Everything else was a blur. Seatbelt saved my life, car got totaled, my whole chest was black and bruised for a few days from the impact. I had just filled my tank too, but yeah, I honestly thought that was it for me that day. In 1995, I suffered from severe abdominal and back pain. I paid several visits to my doctor over that summer because of it. He kept insisting it was PMS and told me I needed to suck it up. Anyway, over the course of a few days, my stomach started to swell up and the pain got worse and worse, so severe that I rated it worse than childbirth. On the Wednesday, I went to the ER and got sent home with 4 Tylenol 3s and instructions to see my idiot doctor. I happened to run into my son's doctor, and he actually noticed that something was wrong. He told me he would be at the ER that Saturday and to come in and would make sure to take x-rays and run some tests. It turns out I had a 100% bowel obstruction, and my lower intestine was rotting from the food trapped behind the obstruction, and my stomach was swollen from the toxic gases. I was rushed into emergency surgery right away. The surgeon told me the next day that it was so bad that I had at most 24 to 48 hours to live had they not intervened, and I ended up with a colostomy bag. This is what happens when doctors dismiss the concerns of women as female troubles that we just need to deal with and shouldn't be bothering them about. Woke up in college room with the worst, most blinding headache of my life, feeling incredibly nauseous and weak. I just assumed it was a brutal flu or food poisoning. I was so exhausted I just wanted to close my eyes and go back to sleep for just an hour. For some reason, a tiny voice in my head told me to drag myself to the window first, just to get some fresh air. As soon as I opened it, the carbon monoxide detector in the hallway finally started shrieking. The gas line in our kitchen had a slow leak. If I had closed my eyes for that 1-hour nap, I would have never woken up. I was delivering my third baby. He was initially turned facing my side. He decided to turn face up. He was 8 pounds, 10 ounces. He got stuck and his heart was decelerating. They were using a suction cup gripper on his head and had a nurse pulling my legs so far back that they tore muscles in my thighs. All after having refused to refill my epidural, which had run out. He still wasn't budging. So then they do first episiotomy, no shot to dull the pain, just straight going to town cutting me. Decide that's not enough and go back for a second cut. Doc's got his foot on the end of the bed, pulling with all he's got. His head comes through and the cord is wrapped around his neck. They get that undone and starts yanking the rest of him through one shoulder at a time. He comes out and has an actual knot in the umbilical cord that's tightened up, and he's blue and limp. They rush him off and it's completely silent. My husband turns gray and has that terrified look on his face. I can't see any of the monitors because they had turned them so I couldn't see them. I hear a gushing sound and liquid hitting the floor as the doctor tries to massage my uterus. My husband said it was like watching a 2-liter get pushed out of me. Still no sound from baby and there's people everywhere working. Doctors calling for blood and to prep the OR for hysterectomy. They crank the Pitocin trying to get to my uterus to clamp down, but it's apparently exhausted and just mush. Doc loads a giant syringe and injects something into my uterus, which causes it to finally contract down. Thankfully it works, and we finally hear a cry from the other side of the room. My husband said he thought we were both going to die, and he'd be raising our 2 boys alone. The nurse had told him if he passed out, they were tossing him in a corner out of the way. They didn't have time for him. Solid guy he managed to hang in there. I've never seen him look that scared. Baby boy is now 20 and doing fantastic. I look back grateful for modern medicine and skilled professionals. Well, you live long enough, you have some of these run-ins. The medical ones are scary. Accidents happen and they're just as scary for sure. They're an acute thing versus a slower or sometimes acute onset. But it's still fascinating to read, and I'm glad the people are here to tell the stories about it. Got a few myself, between the military and a couple things as a silly private citizen. But here we are. And you hope that you can impart wisdom upon your children or family members so that they don't make the mistakes you did, if it was in fact a mistake. Choked after taking a pill. I was leaving a restaurant, took a small sip of water and swallowed the pill. As I'm walking back to the car, I noticed the pull didn't fully go down. As I tried to swallow, somehow the capsule broke and my throat was coated in powder. By this point, I had arrived at the parking garage and couldn't breathe. My SO ran to the car and grabbed an old water bottle while I'm on the ground. Don't know if I would have died, but it was one of the scariest moments of my life. Never again will I take a pill without an entire glass of water by my side. One beautiful summer afternoon, I was driving from Des Moines to Fargo. I'd been given a brand new rental car for the trip that still had its factory satellite radio subscription working. I stopped in some little town along the way and grabbed a sandwich for lunch. The grocery store had Rainer cherries on sale, so I grabbed a bag and hit the road. I was cruising along, enjoying the weather, listening to one of the stand-up comedy radio channels, eating cherries and spitting pits into an empty Mountain Dew can. Life was good. A Bob Newhart bit came on, and some particularly dry joke made me snort just enough to lodge the cherry pit that was in my mouth into my windpipe. I struggled hard to dislodge it, but it wasn't moving. As tunnel vision set in, I pulled over on the highway, frantically looking for some mechanism with which I could self-administer a Heimlich. My vision started to blur, and I could feel myself about to lose consciousness. I actually remember thinking, so this is how I die. I wouldn't have guessed this in a million years. I'm gonna miss my wife. Suddenly my body mustered some last-ditch convulsion and the pit flew free. I breathed hard for a minute, got out of the car and walked a couple of laps around it and got back in. I sat there for a little while longer before driving off again, and I changed the station to classic rock. In case nobody reads the full thing, here's the most important part. Sudden headache and stiff neck are signs of a brain bleed. Do not let them send you home. Demand a scan. Ruptured aneurysm at 39. I was driving and got a sudden migraine and stiff neck. I got home, took Imitrex because I was diagnosed with migraines, and I threw up. For reasons I don't need to get into, I sat up all night, drove my kids to summer camp, and drove myself to the ER. They told me I was fine, just a migraine. Go home and lay down in a dark room with a cold cloth on my head. I told them I wasn't leaving without a scan. They did the scan. They saw my brain bleeding and I was rushed to another hospital. That second hospital saved my life, not just literally, but in general. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had 10 days in ICU and 8 weeks off of work to think about my life and how I wanted it to be with my second chance. I made big and small changes. I recently got the ER notes from that day. That place almost killed me. The doctor noted he had to Google things. Radiology didn't know what scans to order. 4 people couldn't get an IV in me, yet I made it. After my daughter's surgery, she got staph on her wounds, and I was cleaning her up every day and making sure she was getting better, and then I developed stuff on my face, and it turned out to be MRSA, and had to spend 9 days in the hospital on the strongest antibiotics in the world that had only been invented 3 years before me taking them. My uncle died of the exact same thing while I was in the hospital, and my daughter still had staph. I had to have a PICC line put in and have vancomycin and clindamycin IV'd to me nonstop for the 7 days I was in the hospital, and I had to go for 19 more days. After every day I had to go back to the doctor and get IV treatment so that it wouldn't come back. I'd never been so close to death. I'd gone to the doctor on the second day that I had it. I was at a date for work and I came back and my face had swollen like I was holding a golf ball in my mouth. And by the time I got home at the airport, my entire left cheek had been drooping all the way down to my neck. And my doctor said that I went to was my regular doctor. And he stabbed me with a scalpel, thinking it was full of something, but it was nothing. He didn't squeeze out, so he told me to take these antibiotics and go home, and if it got any worse, to go to the hospital. It got way worse. By the next morning, I had traveled down to my chest, and I was so swollen, I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I go to the hospital, and they put me in a room so quick everybody's wearing hazmat gear and everything. I was patient 0 for the day, and that was terrifying. Nobody could come near me. I had to use all plastic and paper dishes. Everybody had to look like a 2913 or whatever it is on Monsters Inc. when they came through on that monster. I slowly got better, and I'm so thankful those antibiotics were developed right before I had to go do that. I still had a scalpel mark on my cheek, but it is super tiny, and I never want anyone ever to go through that again. First day working at Home Depot 20 years ago. I was up on the top rack 15 to 20 feet in the air, taking windows from my department manager on the lift and placing them in the overhead I was standing on. He had an important call, so he went down to take care of it while I waited on the top rack. While waiting, I was gently tapping my back against the safety beam, incredibly stupid in hindsight, and all of a sudden the beam, which was obviously not secured and locked properly, popped out and crashed loudly to the concrete floor, leaving me windmilling for balance at that height. Through sheer will and concentration, I was eventually able to regain my balance and wait safely until my manager returned to assist, but I feel I was mere fractions of an inch from death or serious injury. Had spinal surgery when I was about 20 or 30. Always been fit and healthy with good health markers for the most part. I was inpatient for about 5 days post-op and went home to continue to recover at home. I had home visit physical therapists who would come once a day to have me do all the exercises and walk me around the block and such. Anywho, about 4 days after I got back, I started having a weird sensation when I would inhale. Not painful, but odd. I'd been in a recliner for several days, so I chalked it up to upper back spasms. It progressively got worse for the next 3 days. My wife, doctor, Googled my symptoms, said it was a pulmonary embolism, and kept trying to get me to go to the doctor. I had enough of the doctor, and I didn't think that was the case because I'm pretty sure I would have already been dead if it was in fact PE. Finally, on the 4th day, I started feeling this weird feeling. I've learned since then it was impending doom. Finally agreed to go to urgent care clinic. I explained everything to the desk, and they got me back pretty quick for a scan. Within 2 minutes of going back into the waiting room, 4 nurses basically kicked the door in, dual stuck me with hairpin drip, and were squeezing the bags. Bilateral pulmonary embolisms. Whoopsie. Used to be an HVAC tech. Was working 2.5 stories up on a ladder operating in the back of a wall unit. The unit was off, but it had big capacitors that still have a lot of energy inside. My forearm brushed against one by mistake. Everything went white. I remember a boom, but it sounded like it was underwater. My body froze and I felt nothing. My hands let go. I remember knowing I was falling but not being able to react. I landed in a position I can only describe as when a cartoon character pretends to die. Flat on my back, arms and legs bent and up in the air above me. For about 10 seconds I felt nothing. Then, I felt everything. Miraculously, I walked away from the whole thing with nothing but a scar on my forearm and a whole hell of a lot of bruising and back pain, which I recovered from with no extra medical care. And the craziest part? I was working over a sidewalk. The spot I landed happened to be this small triangular patch of grass and landscaping between 3 interconnecting parts of a concrete sidewalk, just barely big enough to fit my torso perfectly. If I landed anywhere else but that tiny flower bed, I'm dead. Say what you want about faith, but someone was looking out for me that day. I quit my HVAC gig 2 days later. I fix appliances now. Way better. I was an electrician a few years back. We were fixing some faulty lights in a classroom with the power off in the middle of summer. I work in the Northeast and the humidity in the summer reaches terrible levels. The spaces above drop ceiling tiles are always hotter and muggier since the AC is designed for the classroom, not for the ceiling above the ceiling tiles. I was redoing some electrical connections on a fiberglass ladder when I felt a sharp sting on my right elbow. Found the problem. Instantly I stopped all movement. All of my muscles slowly started contracting inward. Realizing that I couldn't remove myself, I attempted to yell for my coworker, who just left to go grab some water. I could not open my lips, unclench my jaw, or make any sound louder than a grunt, and upon attempting a yell, the air I had within me ejected and I couldn't regain my breath. My vision started to tunnel into blackness when all of a sudden I woke up on the floor. My coworker pushed the ladder to avoid getting himself caught and saved my life. Thankfully, I left and we fixed the grounding issue. Please practice all safety precautions, even when it appears to be a quick and simple job can be your last. I've been paralyzed since I was 13. I'm 28 now. I got a disease called transverse myelitis, which is a 1 in 1 million disease. I basically woke up one morning, had a shower, then once I got out I started to get chest and back pain. It felt like someone was stabbing me in the back constantly. Long story short, I was paralyzed within 20 minutes. I ended up getting flown to Adelaide, South Australia. On the plane I flatlined 3 times for 30 seconds, and when I got to Adelaide, my system crashed and I was in a coma on life support for 5 days. I woke up and was paralyzed from my high chest down and couldn't move my left arm. But lucky I got more feeling and movement back. I can move my arm now, and I'm technically paralyzed from nipples down, but I can feel heaps below that, but it's not 100%. The doctors don't know why I'm not paralyzed from my neck down. When I was 23, I was leaving my house, and as I was riding down the road to exit the area, this guy that was highly intoxicated ran in front of the vehicle my friend's mom was driving. He started freaking out, and I rolled down my passenger side back window to try to see what was going on with him and if I could get him to move. I said, "Hey man, just try to stay on the side." He ran so fast over to the window, hit me in the side of the head with some object. I got knocked unconscious immediately. I'm 5'6" male, was probably like 135 pounds at that time. He ripped me through the window and continued to beat me until my friend got him off of me, but everything happened so fast. An ambulance was driving past the road as soon as it happened. The guy fled. My friend got the ambulance to see what was going on. They took me to the hospital. I don't remember everything, but I had 2 skull fractures, and I know I was in a tremendous amount of pain for a while. It was the craziest thing that happened to me. I have so many questions. They never found the guy who did it. Definitely a creepy experience.